All right, so Ducks Hockey and More is talking about trade rumors, the latest things I'm hearing. It's been a few days, and I'm hearing a lot of new stuff, same stuff, new stuff. Bo Horvat, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Dallas, the Ducks. Stick around, we got lots to talk about. Okay, so Ducks Hockey and More. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Let's just jump right into this trade rumor, the latest stuff I'm hearing. Let's jump into, I just did a video on how bad the Vancouver Canucks traded Bruce Boudreau in that whole situation. Well, Vancouver's also got probably the highly touted, most sought after trade bait, if you will, in Bo Horvat. Okay, Bo Horvat, I've talked about him before in previous videos. The captain, the center for the Vancouver Canucks currently is leaving Vancouver. Okay, Vancouver's going to have to move him by the deadline, and that's all there is to it. Bo Horvat's going to be playing for somebody new. He's going to be a UFA at the end of the season, so whoever gets him, okay, is going to have to consider re-signing him. Okay. And keeping him around. Listen, I've talked about it a little bit. The Boston Bruins are in on Bo Horvat. Here's the thing about the Bruins. Adding Bo is, for a team that's already just dominant and potentially going to just steamroll their way to the Stanley Cup, do they need a Bo Horvat right now? Probably not. You kind of break up the team chemistry by adding Bo Horvat a little bit, don't you think? But at the same time, you might add that extra punch that just makes you absolutely unstoppable as you go into the playoffs and make that run. And when you look at the future of the Boston Bruins, okay, David Krejci, Patrice Bergeron, they're not going to be around next season. I don't think they're going to stick around. And they took a pay cut, stuck, for an extra year to this year. And I think, Boston at this point is looking at it like, hey, we're going to go all in. We're going to get the cup this year. And I think they might pull the trigger on going after a Bo Horvat. And it makes sense him playing there because both Krejci and Bergeron aren't going to be around. So what do? You go out and get him. And you sign him to a long-term deal and you solidify that center position moving forward. You're losing a couple of really good players, centers, Bergeron, Krejci, and then you just add Bo Horvat and you sign him long-term, kind of like they did with Hampus Lindholm in Anaheim last season. They traded for him, and he went from Anaheim to Boston, and Boston immediately signed him to a long-term deal so that they could keep Hampus in Boston for, I forget how long the term was, but it was several seasons, 6 or 7 or something like that. So, Hampus got what he wanted, Boston got what they wanted, and, everybody's happy. And I think that adding Bo Horvat in Boston makes sense, and that they do the same thing they did with Hampus. The Boston's known for this. They're known for making a big splash trade deadline to try to make a playoff run. And they've had good success at it. So, I think they might do that. Boston's also linked to another Vancouver Canuck, Luke Schenn. So adding Luke Schenn is also something that's rumored to be out there. It'd be interesting to see if Boston pulls off maybe a 2-player trade where they grab Horvat and Luke Schenn out of Vancouver and then send what players to Vancouver. Now, here's the thing, is Vancouver wants decent stuff for Bo. In fact, I've heard they want to replace Bo Horvat with another young center, okay? Which Boston really doesn't have a deep prospect pool as it is, especially on the center position, okay? One of the players that Boston's going to have to give up, okay, in a deal like this is going to be Fabian Lysell. He's a right winger. He's not a center, which is what Vancouver would like to replace Bo Horvat with. But Fabian Lysell is their best prospect as far as the Bruins are concerned. I have a feeling they're going to have to, if they're going to pull something like this off, they're going to have to move Lysell. And maybe even a first rounder, okay, or maybe a couple of second rounder. I don't know, but it's going to be a pretty big deal. And giving up on a Fabian Lysell and maybe even a first round pick in next year's draft or something like that, that's a big price to pay for Bo Horvat and the future of the Boston Bruins. Yes, he adds that depth center, especially if they can sign him long term for years to come. And the Boston Bruins, they're going to be good, but they're losing out on that ability to add draft picks, bring up those prospects. So what do you want to do? As a Boston fan and an organization, the Boston organization, is that really the price you want to pay for a Bo Horvat when you're already doing so well and winning games convincingly right now, if you're going to make a cup run? But you look at it, the B side, the Boston Bruins want to add a center, okay, in his prime, and sign him long term to keep that center position solidified for years to come, so that they are contenders every year. So I get where they're coming from, but the price is high. They're going to have to give up a lot. So there you go. Look, there's your Bo Horvat news, and Boston Bruins seem to be kind of the big name in the Bo Horvat. There are other teams that are interested. Avalanche, one of them. Seattle Kraken are another team that's interested in Bo Horvat. I even think Carolina is interested. You got to remember though, they're going to have to give up a lot to get him. So who's willing to do that? The Bees are one of those teams where I don't know. It makes sense for him to go there, and what they would do is signing him long term. But they give up a lot to do it. The team that's surprising to me that might end up landing Bo Horvat are the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken are in the playoff picture right now. They are really good and playing very well. And adding a Bo Horvat might just be what they need to make a really long run and surprise a lot of people. So watch for the Seattle Kraken they're not going to be sellers, okay? They're not going to be sellers. They're going to be buyers. And what if they win that Bo Horvat sweepstake? They might. Okay, so let's move on from Bo Horvat. Let's get into some Anaheim Ducks stuff. Player-wise, John Klingberg, I've talked about him a million times. He is linked to the Edmonton Oilers, and he has been since the beginning. The Edmonton Oilers need defense, okay? Klingberg's not the greatest of defensemen. He plays okay, but makes, in my opinion, a lot of mistakes. But his offensive upside is amazing, okay? Now, he hasn't had the year that John Klingberg would like to have had this season, and it's kind of killed his value. So as a Ducks fan, it's kind of hard to watch Klingberg struggle because now his value isn't quite what we were hoping. And so the Pat Verbeek, Klingberg experiment and plan isn't quite going as well as I think Pat Verbeek had hoped. I think Pat Verbeek signed him knowing that he was probably going to move him, and his trade value would be good because Klingberg's got a lot of offensive upside. And he has a great year with the Anaheim Ducks. Trade deadline comes along like it's coming, and you trade him and you get really good stuff for him, like a first rounder at least. And then I know that's what Pat Verbeek wants, and that's what I want to see him get for John Klingberg. But a lot of talk out there about, is he worth a first rounder? So I don't know, we'll see. But Klingberg, Edmonton, the Seattle Kraken have now also been mentioned, are in on the Klingberg sweepstakes. Adding an offensive defenseman might be what Seattle's looking to do as well. Maybe they go crazy and they get a Horvat and a Klingberg. Maybe they just go all in. I don't know. But he's linked to Seattle now as well. And that would be interesting to see, wouldn't it? What else? Something to keep in mind about Seattle, okay? Seattle, no matter what Seattle does with Klingberg, it doesn't matter. Anybody they go after, okay, they've got 3 second-round picks in this upcoming draft. 3. Now, I know it's not first-rounders, but second-rounders are still good players, guys. And so if you've got 3, okay, there's at least a couple there you can go, I'll throw in a couple of second-rounders. Or you go after 2 different players, and each of those teams gets a second-rounder plus maybe something else. You know what I mean? So they've got a lot of leverage having 3 second-round picks in this upcoming draft. So that's going to help Seattle land some players come trade deadline. You watch. Adam Henrique, another left-wing center guy. He's a versatile forward, top 6 forward. He's putting up good numbers this year with Anaheim. He really is. I've always liked Adam Henrique. In fact, he's one of those guys that I'd hate to see the Anaheim Ducks lose. He still has 1 more year left on his current contract. So there's that. And he carries a hefty price tag. The Ducks might have to retain some of that salary. We'll see. But I'd hate to see him go, but he's out there. Teams linked to Adam Henrique are the New York Islanders. Lou Lamoriello, former New Jersey Devil GM, former guy, and because Henrique came over to the Ducks from New Jersey. He's known for bringing, he's known for bringing back players that he had back in the Jersey years. So here he is in New York, the Islanders. And so the Adam Henrique Lou Lamoriello, might happen. So you never know. Maybe Henrique ends up moving to New Jersey. We'll see. Another name on the Anaheim Ducks that's been linked, and I've talked about this player before, a young prospect, and Max Comtois. He hasn't really produced at the level that the Ducks need him to. And it's just, he's one of those guys where I have a feeling, I've talked about it, where I think he would be a good added player to a trade deal. You say, we'll give you this guy, bigger name, and Max Comtois for blah, blah, blah. I don't know. We'll see. But Max Comtois, I think, is going to be dealt only because of the fact that he hasn't produced at the level that we need him to. Okay, he's a former first rounder, and he just doesn't play like it. So change of scenery, I think, will help Max Comtois a lot. Another big name on the Anaheim Ducks that probably wouldn't happen during the regular season. I think Buffalo Sabres and John Gibson, our goaltender, the Ducks goaltender. Some talk about Gibson going to Buffalo and how it makes a lot of sense. Buffalo's getting better and better. Are they going to make the playoffs this year? Probably not. So what does Buffalo do? Well, I have a feeling that it probably won't happen by the trade deadline, but it makes sense that John goes to Buffalo. One, it gets him closer to his hometown back in Pennsylvania, right? Pittsburgh. But, Buffalo's up and coming. They're getting better and better and better, right? They add a solidified number one goaltender in the net, okay, in his prime, that can win. And that might be the difference maker for Buffalo to get them in the playoffs next year and to get them contenders, for the next few years. They've got a great team. They've shown that they've come full circle. They're struggling a little bit, but they're still a good team. I mean, they've got some amazing Dolan, Tage Thompson. That guy's money. They've just got some really good talent, and they're finally out of that cellar that Buffalo's been in for years. And so adding a solidified number one like a John Gibson makes a lot of sense. So anyway, then as a Ducks fan, I'd hate to see that, but at the same time, I think we can get a lot for John in a trade. So maybe that's what we do in the offseason. We'll see. Okay, moving away from Anaheim, San Jose's Timo Meier. Timo Meier has been out. His name has been out there a lot. He is going to be a restricted free agent come the end of the season, but he's also owed $10 million in a qualifying offer by San Jose. So any team that takes on Timo Meier has that to deal with. So San Jose is going to have to retain some of that $10 million qualifying offer. How much of that I don't know, but Timo Meier's having a great year. Just to give you guys a quick, just this season, in 47 games, 27 goals, 20 assists for 47 points. So that's amazing. Okay, Timo Meier's having a great year. He's got the attention of a lot of teams looking to add some scoring, and he can do it. He's only 26, guys. He's right in his prime. He's right there. He's just getting into his prime. 26 years old. So we'll see what happens. Some teams that are interested in him: Dallas Stars, New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers, and the Carolina Hurricanes. They're all linked to him as a possible place where he could end up going. He makes a lot of sense in Dallas to me. Dallas is good. They're leading their division. You add somebody like a Timo Meier there, wow, and get him in there long term, and you know what I mean? Wow, that would be huge. And Dallas just gets that much better by adding somebody like Timo Meier. So anyways, we'll see. We'll have to see what happens there. Something else that's happened recently, the Senators GM, Pierre Dorion, he was recently at the Stars-Kings game, okay, talking to Rob Blake and Jim Neal, and both GMs of the Kings and Dallas Stars respectively. I guess the Sens are looking for a defenseman, and so he was there checking things out. Checking in and talking to the GMs, watching the game. Now, one thing to think about is the LA. LA has a lot of right-handed defensemen. They have a plethora of them, and so that gives them a little bit of leverage as far as getting somebody in return that may help them not only this year trying to get into the playoffs and go far, but in the future as well. So interesting news, just kind of out there, that the Senators GM was in LA watching the Kings game against the Stars, and Senators the Senators weren't there, but he was there watching it, right? So that means that says a lot. There's something going on, right? Anyways. Okay, and moving on from that, Toronto. Okay, Toronto fans, Maple Leafs fans, you got to listen to this. If you don't already know, we've talked about it a lot. Toronto needs defense depth. Okay, they need to add somebody on the blue line. I've linked Klingberg to Toronto. Who else have I heard? There's a lot of names that have been out there. Chychrun, but those prices are kind of high for the Maple Leafs, and because they're right up against the cap ceiling, right? So they'd have to move some money off the books to make room. The other team trading a player like a Klingberg or a Chychrun would have to retain a little bit of that, I think. So it'd be an interesting trade, and the dynamics and the details of the trade would be interesting to read about if they were able to pull something like that off. What makes more sense, though, is what I'm hearing with Toronto being interested in Chicago's, Jake McCabe. Jake McCabe is more of a stay-at-home defenseman. He's having a pretty good year. He's a 29-year-old defenseman, so he's got a lot of experience. Okay, there's that experience on the blue line that you need, especially going into the playoffs. 6'1", 204, 204 pounds. So he's not the biggest defenseman, decent height, but not a big guy. But this year he's got 41 games in and 2 goals, 11 assists. So like I said, he's more of a stay-at-home defenseman. He has put up some points. He is a +5, though. That's good to keep in mind. If you're a team like Chicago, who's at the bottom of the NHL, and you're a +5 on a team like that, that's good. Okay, that's good. Now put him on a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it changes the dynamic of this player altogether. Not that he's going to go put up a bunch of points, but that's what Toronto needs. I mean, he's a +5 on a crappy team going to a really good team, and the production that they're able to do on the offensive side and his ability to defensively, that would huge for Toronto and huge for McCabe. So any interesting stuff there. McCabe might end up being a Maple Leaf. Okay, come trade deadline. Other names out there, Matt Dumba of the Minnesota Wild. He has been scratched. 2 healthy scratches, 2 games in a row. Interesting. Usually a lot of that starts to happen when teams are about to move somebody. This could be just a you're not playing well enough type of thing, move by the coach. But 2 games in a row, that's kind of hard to swallow. But typically you see that a lot right before a player's about to be moved. So anyways, Matt Dumba's been scratched 2 games in a row. Jacob Chychrun, the Chychrun talk has kind of slowed down. Obviously, he's a big name out there, probably close to the Bo Horvat name as far as the 2 top names, and you could probably throw Patrick Kane in that too. But the Chychrun trade rumor mill is just kind of, the talk has kind of quieted down a little bit. Now it may heat back up. I think the reason we're not hearing a whole lot about it is because Arizona's asking price is pretty high. And they hold the cards with 2 more years left on his contract. They don't have to move him right now. Okay? Unless somebody steps up and says, we'll give you what you want, there's no reason Arizona needs to do anything this drastically quick with Jacob Chychrun. So I think the asking price is pretty high. And so teams right now are just they're not going that direction. So you're starting to not hear too much about it. LA Kings are the top team that seems to be leading the way in the Chychrun sweepstakes, but that might not be something that happens this year unless the Kings are willing to pull it off. Maybe it's the offseason where we see Chychrun go to a new team. Okay, so that could very well be. Like I said, Arizona they hold the cards and they can be patient with this one. Detroit, Dylan Larkin and the Detroit Red Wings. Their captain, Dylan Larkin, is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Can Detroit sign him and keep him around? I don't know. There's a lot of talk now where the Dylan Larkin camp got an offer from Detroit and they weren't happy with it. So where does that leave? What do you want to do? I mean, I in an interview, I read that an interview with Dylan Larkin, he wants to stay in Detroit. He doesn't want to go anywhere else. He'd rather stay there. So both sides want to work something out, it sounds like, but the latest offer wasn't accepted and liked too much by the Dylan Larkin camp, if you will, and his agent. So it's interesting. Are they going to be able to hold on to him? Because as an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, if Detroit doesn't make the playoffs, you risk losing that player and getting absolutely squat for him. Nothing. And he can sign wherever he wants. What are you going to do, Detroit? Oh, man. I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. There you go. There you go. I don't have anything else for you on that side of things. That pretty much sums it up. There are lots of other names and lots of other teams looking to add some depth and some scoring and some defense going into the playoffs. And again, we're only in mid-January right now. We're January 22nd. We still got all next month to see how things play out. And I think, I'm surprised nothing's happened yet, but it's going to happen any day now. The first move's going to be made, and then we're all going to be like, okay, and then it's just going to get busier and busier and busier. So exciting times to come. I love trade rumors. Keep tuning in to Ducks Hockey more for more trade rumor videos. I love them. Keep in mind, I don't put a lot of stock into them. They're just rumors. Okay, they're just rumors. 9 times out of 10, and that might be a little high, but most of these rumors don't even come to fruition. It always ends up being something completely different. So, but it's fun to talk about, and it keeps you on your toes a little bit come this time of year. So, hey, thanks for watching. Go down, subscribe, leave me comments. Tell me what you think. Your favorite team, who you'd like to see on your team, anything I talked about you want to comment on, go down there, throw a comment on the bottom down below. I respond to them. I love getting your guys' comments. They're great. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time, guys.